Dialogue with Denise. Ask her anything.
I'm pretty open with telling people things.
You
Anyway,
are.
it's 7:00. I love it. At 7:00. And first of all, I just want to thank everyone. I see that more people are joining in now. And just thank you so much for spending your time with us tonight. And even though we're doing social distancing, physical distancing, I really appreciate the fact that right now you are taking some time out for you to learn some new strategies. And you are going to love today's show because our special guest is absolutely incredible. I have known Sheryl Roush for, oh my goodness, I think more than 20 years. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Sheryl. So she is the CEO of Sparkle Presentations based in San Diego, California. She is an international speaker and consultant. And get this, she is a 17-time published author. I thought I was doing well with 3 books. You have done 17. Bravo to you. And I love the content that you write because it's all about connecting with the heart, which is so important. And that's what we're talking about today. So, Sheryl, can you tell us why, even now during this pandemic, why is it so important that we discover the tools to talk authentically, even virtually?
You know, in times like this, and thanks, Denise, for having me on, we don't know when the next time will be that we will see our loved ones in our lives. With as quickly as this pandemic, unfortunately, is doubling every 3 days, we can't take anything for granted. And maybe there are several things which are bubbling up for us to take a look at in our lives, including, gosh, what do we really need to have in our lives? What are the more important things in our lives? Who are the more important people in our lives? And really taking a look at it. And it's almost as if this is a global reboot. So for us to, whenever we can, connect authentically and be real, be genuine, come from the heart, speak your truth, say what it is that you really feel, think, and mean. Wow, maybe that's what all of this is about, is shaking out the superficiality of our lives. I don't know, in the divine reason of things, I just know that it's a time for us to really look at our lives and see what's working and get rid of what's not working. It's almost as if when we go back to work, we may not even go back to that particular job. Our relationships are changing. The kids are at home. The spouse is working down the hallway. You know, all of this, it's so very different for us these days that it's a great time for us to be introspective, to take a look at and be reflective of perhaps greater significance in our lives. And communication is at the core of everything. Everything, and how we communicate with ourselves, how we communicate with our kids, our coworkers, if we're communicating virtually or face-to-face in person, it all comes down to how are we saying what we're saying, and what are we saying, and is it in the most authentic and compassionate kind way?
Oh, so how are we saying what we're saying? Go into that a little bit more. How we're saying what we're saying.
Well, if we were to take a look at the vocal portion of it, what's the tone? So say, for instance, in virtual communication, now we have more email, we have chat boxes. Oh, thank you for all of the applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I read emojis. Thank you. How are we communicating? If we've always known that words and tone can be misconstrued, especially in an email. We know not to use all capital letters. Well, now that we're virtually and having chat boxes and webinars and podcasts, the beauty of technology is that we can see eye to eye, that we can feel heart to heart, and that how we say it, what else the body is doing at the same time, that we can read between the lines. And I'm a firm believer, Denise, that we need to meet people where they are, which especially now in times like this, we need to be fully present to the people in our lives and to those people with whom we are communicating. So it all comes down to what's the intention, what are the words that we're using, and to really pay attention to what type of listener, because there's 7 different types of listeners, matter of fact, in any group and one-on-one, and we need to be able to meet people where they are.
Let's talk about those different listening styles, because sometimes we think everybody has the same sort of style, but there is an art to it. So if you're talking to someone, I used to teach seminars on dealing with difficult people, and I learned that if you're talking to someone who talks really loud, it's okay for you to raise your volume and your voice. But if you're talking to someone who's a little more gentle, it's really helpful for you to lower your voice.
I still teach that seminar. And what you're talking only I've reframed it because semantics do make a difference. So I've changed overcoming negativity to creating a positive work environment. It all matters. So what you were talking about is matching and mirroring. I refer to it as the pit bull voice. So if someone is really loud and yelling, and that's that vocal inflection, that you want to match them, but don't take it personally because it's not about you. It's almost as if you're acting for a second, that you meet them where they are, and then you can bring the vocal tone down to, maybe a chihuahua or a German shepherd or something. Right. And so what we want to do, the first thing that we want to do in any type of communication is really be present. And I would say, listen to what the person's saying, listen to everything else that's going around them, and listen with your eyes. Really be present.
Listening with your eyes can be a little tricky. I've gotten much, much better at it because my son-in-law is actually amazing with eye contact. But at first I was not used to somebody talking with such great eye contact that I'd start to look away. Do you have any suggestions on how we can keep that eye contact when we're talking?
Well, there is a concept known as grazing, where you actually kind of look between their eye and maybe over to their cheek and maybe to the other cheek, especially if you're not used to that and all of a sudden somebody is present. I remember, and I love all the stories that you tell about your dad. So here, and your granddad. So here's one about my dad, is that at the dinner table one night, and he's talking, my dad, great storyteller. And I was really, paying attention. I'm listening so much that I could ask questions, paying attention, being fully present and asking questions. Mom's doing her thing, brother's doing their things. And I'm asking dad questions. He says, "Oh my gosh, when did you start listening to me?" I'm listening to you. And he at fully present, and that changed our entire relationship. So here's what I learned, because I started studying the gifts of listening. We're really not taught growing up how to listen. We're not really. We're told to listen, but we don't know that there's different multiple intelligences. So Howard Gardner, a PhD, and Thomas Armstrong did great research on this. And they're both PhDs from early childhood education. And what they revealed is that there's several different listening styles, or I call them channels, of how we pay attention to other people. So for instance, there's 7 groups. The first one is linguistic. With linguistic, these people have a gift for words. They may choose semantics. So for instance, you're in Whitby, Ontario, Canada, and we would say in America about, you would say about. We have projects, you have projects. Yes, thank you. A boot. Thank you. So linguistic people pay attention to that. They notice subtleties. They notice little differences in things. And if, let's say, for instance, if you're communicating virtually, doing a webinar or a podcast, then the words that you select need to be appropriate for your audience, whether it's cultural intelligence or being fully present, or what's the terminology if you're teaching classes, whatever that might be. Linguistic people love stories. They also love discussion. So right now it's the linguistic people who are popping notes in the chat box, by the way. So those are the people who are using the gift of linguistics. These people are also incredible proofreaders and grammar checkers. If there's a typographical mistake in anything, bless their little hearts, those are the people who find the mistake. I love it. You got to have proofreaders that are like that. So for instance, when it comes to virtual and learning, linguistic people are fine if you hand them the material to read. If it's a white paper, if it's a PDF, or they're fine reading, and they love all of the resources which are available to do that. They also have a gift for learning more than one language, which is interesting. So in my programs, I actually take people through a 28-point, very simple type of assessment. And they find out, well, how am I communicating? So linguistic people need to have words. In a virtual presentation, it could be where you send people to the breakout rooms that then they have their own conversations. Linguistics, especially if they're interpersonal as well as one of their modalities, they're going to be brainstorming. They're great to mastermind with. They're wonderful. They're paying attention. They're listening to words. So if the linguistic has a gift, it's the words, the semantics. They're really paying attention to that. So here's what happens, that now we have spouses and children all stay in place during the COVID-19, and conversations are escalating because people are challenging what the words are. Well, take it down a notch. Pay attention to what was the word, work it out regarding around that word, because you can quickly de-escalate a situation just replacing different words.
So a lot of the conflict is just because somebody uses a word that you interpret a different way and you don't like it.
Or it could be the word should. People just hate it. Just hate it when you should on them. So we have to be really careful with that. And instead, a different reframe might be, would you please clean your room? Instead of you should do, or you have to, or you need to. People do right now in this situation more so than I think even in our most recent past. We want to feel that we have a sense of control, and you have episodes of great experts talking about that and what's the fears that are going on, and the fear is that we're out of control. Well, there's a couple of things that we do have control over: our mindset and our choice of words. So we really do have more input into this, and we can easily reframe mindfully. So the linguistic people are paying attention to the words. So that's the first group.
What's the second group? This is so good.
So the second group, unlike the first that has words, the second needs numbers. They need numbers. So if you say you're going to be starting this episode at 7 o'clock, it better be 7 o'clock on the nose, not 7:01. Those people are paying attention to everything. Virtually, matter of fact, because I'm doing so many podcasts, webinars, coaching people virtually, it's to the minute. It's not like in the workplace where we could kind of cruise in 2 or 3, 4 minutes late, even though the mathematic would notice that if they were the supervisors. Or if you tell the kids to go to bed at 8 o'clock and it's 8:08, it's like, no, they're paying attention to that. In a virtual reality and virtual presentations and communicating now, if someone is using numbers in how they're communicating with us, that's a clue. Again, be present. Listen to what it is that they're saying. They're also very logical, very linear. They need the facts, statistics, and details. So, for instance, I was listening to one of your other episodes, and it came down to, what was it? It was so fascinating. It's like, well, is it this or is it the word that you both were challenging is the word always. Well, is it true that I never clean up my room, that it's always a mess? Well, that's a linguistic. So a mathematical may come back and say, yes, 87.5% of the time, your room is a mess. That would be a mathematical. So if we're present, people will give us the clues of which of these channels are they speaking on. And if it's not our preferred channel, because we typically speak on the same channel that we prefer to hear, that's how we know if we're instantly connecting with people, we're on the same channel. It could be that, gosh, you've had a relationship with somebody for 20 years and you've never gotten along. You're not on the same channels. So by paying attention, we can switch over to their channel, meet them where they are, and have authentic, genuine communication. So the mathematical is the second group. They need facts, statistics, details, numbers. And their gift.
Let's say that you're a mom and you're dealing with a numbers kid, and you want them to do something like clean their room. What kind of dialogue would you still just say, can you clean your room? Or is there actually some strategy where you could use numbers?
Sure. What if you said, Johnny, there are 3 things that you need to do before dinner at 5?
Oh, that's great.
Number 1, this. Number 2, this. And number 3, this. And if you finish before 5 o'clock, you will get a reward of whatever that it is. 20 extra minutes on Netflix tonight, or whatever that it is, or Hulu, or right. So yes, tie in numbers into the conversation. I found for me that in in the multiple intelligences, for me, that's my weakest area. So I make certain in my presentations that I always have numbers, because even if it's not my channel, it's somebody who's listening. It's their channel. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so good to know. Because at first I thought, well, how would you talk to a numbers kid? And it's funny because as you were saying it, I thought I was numbers, but then you used that phrase. I'm very aware. So maybe I'm linguistics, but if somebody uses certain words, like if somebody says always, it's like, well, that's an all or nothing word.
That's linguistic. That's linguistic. And it's also extreme communication. It's either or, black and white thinking, which normally causes conflict. I caught myself on that. I think the third one, you'll really relate to this, Denise, because you're wearing bright colors and you're very bright and effervescent. The third group are the visual people. We need to see it. So when you're saying, have fun things in your office that really help light your spark or whatever, we need to see visuals. You're wearing bright colors. You have beautiful flowers. So I'm visual as well. So I noticed that your fashionista dress is matching the beautiful flowers seated on the table behind you.
Oh.
So we need to see it. So for instance, when we're giving someone instructions, whether it be in a virtual presentation, a virtual meeting, or if it's in stay at home in place, and somebody says, well, I don't know what you mean. Can you show me? There's our clue. They're telling us that they're visual. Show me what you mean. Help me see it. Help me envision. I can visualize that. Or sure, that absolutely, that then we know that we're on the same page. So they need to see it. Virtually, this could be any type of graphics, whether it be your attire, your gestures, your props, whatever that it might be in that particular presentation. And I think right now in our stay-at-home self-isolation, we need to have bright colors around us. And on the color psychology of things, yellow promotes mental stimulation and helps us feel happy.
Oh, so I see a little bit of yellow in your background as well. So what is that you have there?
That's a happy sun.
Oh, it's a happy, is that a balloon?
That's a happy sun. And up here, there's a big old happy face.
Well, that's good to know, because listen, bringing in some color right now is something easy enough to do. And when you had mentioned the flowers, the reason I did that is because I have a quarantine checklist that I ask myself every day. And the bottom question, number 6, says, what beauty am I either inviting in or cultivating today? And when I started going through it, I thought, I can get flowers. Then the next day I asked myself the checklist again. And then I thought, okay, well, I already have flowers. Okay, I'll light a candle. So it's just ways of every day focusing on what you're thankful for and what can you do to bring beauty in. So
that's interesting, Denise, because you just tapped on number 4 and number 5 simultaneously. You you did. So for instance, the fourth intelligence is more musical. So to have in your quarantine checklist, I would hope that we would all have some type of playlist that really cheers us up, that whatever it is. So for instance, there's an old song that says, you gotta make your own sunshine, leave your worries behind, you gotta make your own sunshine. So whatever the songs are that help lift you up, especially if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't gotten out in days, which by the way, one of my tips is to eat vitamin D3, because if we're not getting outside, Beach Boys, thank you very much, Sue. Thank you. Yep. Let's see. I wish they all could be California girls. Anyway.
Oh, thanks for singing, and thanks, Sue. Nice to see you there, Sue, by the way.
So musical is the fourth group, and the fifth group that you were touching on with the candles is kinesthetic. So kinesthetic, tapping into our senses. And let's see, peppermint creates alertness. And this is what I would sprinkle in the room when I was teaching overcoming negativity, because then it's tough to be negative when there's such a bright aromatherapy of peppermint, which also increases memory. So if you're stuck, if you're not used to working at home before, or if you're getting ready to give a virtual presentation or attend another meeting, I think we're hitting an all-time high on all of our online platforms, is to have some aromatherapy that, like peppermint, Cinnamon's great to wake up to in the morning. So the candles that you light, there's one behind you there by the flowers. So that shows me that I know already of the 7, you are linguistic, visual, musical, and kinesthetic.
Oh,
So already.
musical. Well,
Musical. Well, I get that about you because too, in your speaking, you have a cadence with which you speak. Often
you're right.
people, yeah, and often
I-
people who are musical, they click their pens. They click their pens, and there was something that you did in one of your interviews, and you were snapping or something. So it's like, okay, got it. There's your musical. So you can have some fun with it.
Oh, that's
So
so.
those,
I think you're talking to somebody who's a musical person. Then let's say you know for sure that someone you work with or your child is musical. What do you say to this individual?
God, there's a fun. Okay, for a kid, it could be, oh, let's have some fun and make up a song. Because it's like, this is how we clean our room, clean our room, clean our room, or something like that. That you could have some fun. So, for instance, when I'm cleaning house, I put on disco music. That's my thing. That's my celebrate good times. Come on, sweep, sweep,
Sheryl
sweep.
Roush is the disco queen. I had no idea. So are there any other styles for listening that we need to be aware of?
Those are the first 5. So you have your linguistic, mathematic, visual, musical, and kinesthetic. Then there's 2 more, which is interesting because group number 6 is interpersonal. You, Denise, are interpersonal off the scale. You love people. These are people. Barbara Streisand wrote their song, People Who Need People. She wrote your song.
Definitely musical. I don't know why. That's you.
Well, the musical people will often say, "Guy, that just what we're dealing with right here, guy, just makes me want to break out in song, like happy or happy feet or whatever kind of thing, or that they link a tune to a concept." So interpersonal, so we can be any and all of these 7. So our last 2 are interpersonal, people. And then the 7th group is introspective or intrapersonal. So for instance, let's take the interpersonal who is leading a webinar. And they want to implement all of the first 5 into what they're doing. Then to help support the learning, send people into the breakout sessions or have dialogue or open up the chat for questions and get feedback going that way. So interpersonal are natural facilitators of sessions. We're natural speakers. When a parent has different different kids and or their significant other, anybody else that's in the house, that you want to make sure that you're using all of these modalities so that you're connecting with each person in the conversation. I did this with and let me tell you one more thing, and I'll come back to another story with my dad. So the interpersonal need interaction. Brainstorming, discussion, conversation, dialogues with Denise, whatever that we want to do with that. Then the 7th and final group is that introspective. These are the thinkers. So the clue that we can follow from them is when they say, let me think about it, or they actually do the gestures with the hands, across their, they're thinking like the Bill Gates position, is that they're thinking about it. When they say, let me think about it, we need to give them space. They will go away. They'll process it. So for instance, my father, introspective, kinesthetic. When my mother would say, oh, what do you think about, because my mother was high linguistic, high visual, kinesthetic, interpersonal. She could go to a party, a gathering, and she would know everyone's name within 10 minutes and remember them from years on that, just kind of thing. And when I learned this and I'm watching my parents and seeing where their conflicts would be after 60 years of marriage, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Yes. That then I thought, oh, Dad's an introspective kinesthetic. He needs to walk away from the conversation, think about how he feels, check in and come back. And it will be a very sound, logical question or solution to the situation. Things that Mom had never thought of before. It's like, wow. So when they say, let me think about it, give them space. If this is let's say somebody asking a parent or a coworker or a boss or a supervisor, when they say, let me think about it, give them time. It might be that you say, I'll check back with you tomorrow, say about 2:00. So if they're mathematical and you know that, how about if we check back at 2:00 tomorrow? Is that good? And then they will confirm, or if 2:00's not okay, tell you what, let's say 2:30. Okay, 2:30, we'll check back and let me know what you think. If there's anything that I've missed, let me know.
So I'm seeing how you're saying that they might be one of the 7, but they could also be a mathematical. So maybe they have 2 traits.
They can be all of them to different degrees. They could. And ideally, this is what we want to do. So as we have the kids at home now, tips for parents is to use all of these and to pay attention to what your children, your teenagers, your grown children who have just moved back to home, whatever that it might be, test these out because these are tried and proven. It's amazing. So what I find when I do the assessment with audiences, virtual or in person, is that when they look at interpersonal number 6 and intrapersonal number 7, they are often either the same point or 1 point different. And what I think that means is that we have balance in our lives. When we're giving a presentation, when we're communicating, we're in front of an audience or whatever it is that we are the leader in that particular situation, we need to be interpersonal. We need to draw from these other channels. Then we need to reflect. That's when we pause and we think. So for instance, after this webcast, then people are going to be going, oh, how do I apply that in my life? Oh, that makes sense. Oh, no wonder that happened, kind of thing. So they're going to be thinking about it. We need to regenerate. We need to pause, be reflective, self-assess. How can we be better next time this comes up? How can I handle that differently now with this information that I know? And then we can step back into it and then again be interpersonal. So we want a balance of all of this. Ideally, we want to have each of the 7. There are different times that we use each of the 7, that's for sure. To be mindful of it is going to help us be fully present. If we're not sure what a person is, pay attention to their words. Again, listen with their eyes, hear what they're saying and guess, and then go ahead and reflect back. And then if you're not sure, they'll correct you. And it's like, oh, so if they say, oh, I hear what you're saying, that's linguistic. I see what you're saying, that's visual. Mathematical.
I think you have just helped so many people because right now, I'm not joking, because in this pandemic where people are living together and forced to stay together 24/7, people are butting heads more than normal. We're seeing it on the news and we're hearing, even the numbers in China for divorce when they were able to get out of their houses skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. So you could have actually just saved marriages right now by saying, oh, okay, so I'm having this conflict. I'm just speaking in a different language. So we think we're all speaking English, but there's actually a language to communicate.
There's channels. And so what we need to do sometimes is to pivot the channel just a little bit over to their channel.
Well, listen, it's 7:28 and the numbers person likes to finish on time as well. But I want to just ask, where can people get more information? Because like I said, you are a 17-time published author. Can they get your books on your website, or what's the best way to reach out to you?
Absolutely. Please find me at Sheryl, Sheryl, Roush, ROUSH.com. I'd love to hear from you. Many of my books are available on ebook and Kindle on Amazon, so you can search me as an author in books. Reach out to me if you would like this program tailored for customer service, for IT, for your employees, for your groups. I'm available to do that, and it would be my honor to be of service. I've loved this dialogue with Denise tonight. This is fantastic.
I love it too. And thank you so much